Initially I knew that I wanted to go back to grad school, so I started researching, and I ended up choosing the K-State program just for a variety of reasons. One, it was online, which made it very flexible for me to still have a full-time career, but it also provided the opportunity to come on campus and network and engage with my peers and with the faculty here as well. And also just wanted to stick with a university that had a strong reputation and especially had deep roots in agriculture.
Thank you for joining us for our Agri-Pulse Washington Week in Review. I'm Spencer Chase, joined as always by Agri-Pulse Senior Editor Phil Brasher, discussing the week that was, agriculturally speaking, in Washington, D.C. And a lot of the action of the week that was here in Washington, D.C. happened within the last 24 hours. It's been a very eventful Thursday here on Capitol Hill for agriculture policy. And a couple of things to talk about. And the first one we want to mention is some action that's going to have impacts on the Farm Bill, but also has impacts in the more immediate future, because the Senate Agricultural Appropriations Subcommittee turned out some language today that Phil was not entirely expected, and it addresses two huge Farm Bill questions going into the process.
Yeah, I had heard a few weeks ago that this was possibly in the works, but they really kept it under the wraps until the bill came out today. They really wrote a big piece of the Farm Bill, Spencer. They made cottonseed, or this provision, this is a long way from becoming law, but the provisions that are in this bill would make cottonseed eligible for the price loss coverage program, something that the cotton industry has really been working for a couple of years, actually. And then it would make a number of changes to the margin protection program for dairy that would make the coverage cheaper and make it potentially more likely for payments to actually be made. This really resolved could resolve, got to emphasize,
yeah.
Could resolve a big problem facing the Senate and House Agriculture Committees as they prepare to write a new Farm Bill, because they didn't have the money to do this. They would have to take it out of something else. The appropriators, by the magic of the way the budget process works around here, may have the fix.
And this is not a new fight. This is something we've covered quite a while, that there was going to be some kind of pursuing of a cotton and dairy fix in the Farm Bill. There's been cotton and dairy pursuance in the budgets, in other appropriations, but this language also wasn't in the House Appropriations bill.
No, it wasn't. And you have over in the Senate, their focus has always been over in the Senate, because you have Thad Cochran, who's the chairman of the Senate Appropriations Committee from the state of Mississippi. The top Democrat on the Appropriations Committee is Pat Leahy from Vermont. He cares a lot about dairy. And so you had those two senators and their staff who've been working on this, along with should I add, Debbie Stabenow, the top Democrat on the Senate Agriculture Committee. Her staff also involved in this. So big deal potentially. Again, this has to go through the appropriations process to eventually become law. But if it does, it definitely makes it much easier to write the Farm Bill, because they don't have to come up with more money.
Mm-hmm. So this is something that a lot of folks have been working on for a very long time, and the fact that it's in this legislative language does not mean it has been officially written into law. Obviously a lot of things that have to happen between now and then, but to my knowledge, this is the first time a subcommittee has approved a bill with language with cotton and dairy funding in it.
Right. Well, it's the full committee. It's the full Senate Appropriations Committee. This now technically goes to the floor. What's actually probably going to happen is they will get down to negotiations on funding for fiscal 2018. That's likely not to happen until later in the year, and then they will want to include this. I should add that the magic of this whole thing is that because this spending bill, this appropriations bill, is for fiscal 2018, that starts October the 1st, the only thing that matters is how much this cost in fiscal 2018. Well, the cost is absolutely nothing, because these payments wouldn't kick in until after fiscal 2018. So the Appropriations Committee doesn't have to worry about the cost of this bill. It's about, of these two provisions, about close to $1 billion, but all of that cost is outside the window that they have to care about. So it's amazing what
little Capitol
Congress
Hill
can
mouth
do.
can do, huh? So, another thing we want to talk about here, for the last several months, every conversation that's been had in terms of agricultural policy has been had with the subtext of, well, we need to see who gets into place at USDA. It took a little bit of time for Sonny Perdue to be confirmed as the Secretary of Agriculture. It took a while for him to be nominated as well. And this week, within the last week really, we've seen a little bit more finality with who the White House wants to be staffing the Department of Agriculture. Last week, we saw American Soybean Association CEO Steve Censky nominated to be the Deputy Secretary at the Department of Agriculture. And this week, we saw Ted McKinney and Sam Clovis nominated to some undersecretary positions. And Phil, we're really finally starting to see the White House put their brand and put their stamp on who they want to be at the Department of Agriculture.
Yeah, we've had these names. I think we first reported on them early in May. So they've been out there. A lot of hold up in terms of getting paperwork, meeting all the requirements of the Office of Government Ethics and all of those things. But the names, you point out, we're starting to see some movement. Steve Censky as Deputy Secretary, his nomination formally went to the Senate on Wednesday, so that means they can start to schedule confirmation hearing and potentially get him get his nomination on the floor. I don't think there's going to be any controversy about him. So that should move. Whether the Senate will be able to do anything before the August recess is the question, and that's good. It's a very tight time frame.
Mm-hmm. Stay tuned on that front. You know, Phil, you mentioned that you don't anticipate any controversy over Censky's nomination. We really don't anticipate any controversy over McKinney's either. But
yeah,
we've already
Secretary for Trade.
Correct. We've already seen some opposition to the nomination of Sam Clovis to be essentially USDA's chief scientist. Senate Agriculture Committee ranking member Debbie Stabenow out with a statement today expressing some concerns about his nomination. And Phil, we saw this level of concern when the names were first reported in May, but now it's a little bit more concrete. People that are opposed to this nomination have something, concrete to be opposed to.
Right, and the objection that's being raised, there are a number of them, but one of the objections being raised is that he's not qualified because he's not a scientist, and that doesn't meet the requirement to be the Undersecretary of Research and Economics and Education. So, big question is whether any Republicans would oppose his nomination. Presumably, if Senator Stabenow opposed it, that most of all of the Democrats might potentially vote against him. But remember, we've done away with the 60-vote filibuster for nominations, and so all Republicans have to do is hold together, and they can get him through. But he is certainly the first controversial, or one could describe as controversial nomination to come up for USDA.
Mm-hmm. So we'll be certain to keep an eye on developments on that front. Also, still waiting on one more name to be nominated by the White House from that batch of names that we reported back in May. And so we'll be keeping an eye on our email inboxes and on our cell phones to see if that name will be coming to fruition here in the very near future. But we're starting to see the White House say who they want to lead the Department of Agriculture. Now it's the turn for the United States Senate to give their stamp of approval or not, if they so choose. But I think that's going to do it for the news and events of this week. We certainly appreciate you stopping by agripulse.com. For Phil Brasher, I'm Spencer Chase. Have a good one.